admission. But I have to tell you, 5 years and 3 months to the day. I mean, I think we all, the ones that, of us who's had the strokes, this is something that's always on your mind. And I know it is still on mine, So 5 years and 3 months ago, doctors told me, and I quote, "You shouldn't be here because most don't survive, and yet there's nothing wrong with you." That was their next breath. They even went as far as calling me a miracle and asking me how I did it. I had 3 strokes in 3 weeks that left me paralyzed. Now, considering that I was an athlete, am an athlete to this day, all my life, and on top of that, being in the exercise and fitness business, I was telling people how to get in shape and be healthy. So to have something like this happen to me, I have to tell you, it was unthinkable. It was just, it shook me. That was my wake-up call. There's no question about that. I mean, I was like in denial. How could this happen to me? So that was my crossroads. That was that moment where I had to ask myself, what am I going to do now? I was, the 3 strokes, the 2 of them happened back to back. And I was fortunate that I had a wife that was really stubborn with me because, I'm an athlete, and my first response was, first of all, I didn't know it was happening. I didn't have a clue. I could have never done that when the first one happened. The second one happened when I was in the hospital. Actually, it kind of happened back to back. But, I mean, fortunately, I got to the hospital within 4 hours of the first one, and they gave me TPA. I'm sure you've heard of that too. It's really interesting when you're in that spot, and then all of a sudden the doctors tell me, well, you can have, because I didn't know about TPA. So I have this, and the doctor's telling me, I'm pretty jacked up at that point because I was paralyzed on one side, and I could barely talk and all that, my vision. And they're saying, look, you can do this TPA, here's the risk. At that point, they told me that if it works, in 2.5 days, you're going to walk out of the hospital like it never happened. If it doesn't work, you're going to die because you'll probably bleed out. So there I am. It's like, what are you going to do? I just knew at that point I didn't want to be like that. So I said, give it to me. And sure enough, I went in on a Thursday, and Sunday I walked out of the hospital like nothing ever happened to me. It was amazing. That was the good and the bad. Because the doctors told me, they said, look, you had a major assault on your body and brain, and we want you to go home and take about 4 to 6 weeks off. I looked at him like he was crazy. I thought, 4 to 6 weeks? He must be talking to somebody who's average. I'm an athlete, man. 4 to 6 weeks? Ooh, that hurt. And I just nodded, and I said, okay. I didn't really, down deep, I didn't really mean that, but I nodded, and I said, okay. And he said, for sure, no more bodybuilding. I was a world-class bodybuilder, And so I went home, and I really did try to stay at home for 4 to 6 weeks, but I ended up going back to my work a week later. A week later. And I rationalized this whole thing. I said, well, what I'm going to do is I'll go back, I'm going to cut my workload back, because I'm a workaholic. I mean, everything is all or nothing, and bodybuilding is one of those kind of sports that kind of feeds into that. But I went back to my work, and I said, well, okay, I cut my work schedule way back. My training, this is going to be like child's play compared to what I used to do. So I went back really easy. And I mean it, I was doing it really easy. And things were going pretty good. It seemed to be okay. And I thought to myself, I knew that I could come back a little sooner. And 3 weeks to the day, I had my 3rd one. I knew this time what was going on. This time I knew. In fact, I was training one of my clients. And I told him, I said, hey, you know, I'm having my third stroke as you and I are speaking right now. I have to go, you know, I have to go now. And I'm not advocating what I did next, but I drove myself back to the hospital. But I have to tell you, I made it, and I parked perfectly. Barely. I got to the window, and I knocked, and I said, look, I'm having my third stroke as we speak. They took me back around. That's when my whole world changed, because after I had my third one, I couldn't have the TPA. You have to wait like 3 months before they give it to you again. So that's when my world changed, because now I was like, the exact same thing happened. I was paralyzed again from head to toe. And again, I wasn't totally paralyzed, always, you know, on my side, but I was, my arm was dead, my hand was dead, you know, but I had paralysis all up and down the right side of my body. And the doctor said, we can't do that. Now you have to rehab this thing from scratch. I had to start over. And that's where I had my moment. You know, I went home and I listened to the doctor. You know, kind of starting over again. So I listened to the doctor, and I did take my 4 to 6 weeks. But you know, here's the thing. I went to my first consultation with my physical therapist, and I never went back again. And I'll tell you why. And I wouldn't have done that if I hadn't been in the sport that I was in. You have to understand, when you're at the world level that I was in, you are the master control of your body when it comes to how your body moves, nutrition. I mean, these are all things that you have to do on every level to get your body to perform. I would have never made that choice if I hadn't have had my background. And keep in mind, I've been in you know, working with people and high-level athletes for the last 35 years. So I just didn't make that choice. I have background. The thing that bothered me, and again, I'm not you know, downplaying or bad-mouthing any physical therapy. I'm not, because I think they serve a very, very important purpose. It just didn't fit my needs. I just really felt like their goals for me was for me to be functional. And my goals for me was to be 100% recovered. I mean, that mindset is totally different. And, you know, so I decided to make that choice. So I went ahead and started rehabbing myself in my house. One of the things that we learned about in training is about the mind linking to the muscle. Your brain and your body is, as some of you know, is fantastic. It really is something. In the sport that I was in, we believed this in blind faith. We talked about connect your mind to the muscle when you're training to make it more effective. Each and every move that you make it count. Because most people don't in the weightlifting world. About 60% of the movement is really efficient. The rest of it is kind of wasted movement. So I just took all that information that I had, and I applied it in this case, believing that was the direction I was going to go in. Because what I learned from the sport of bodybuilding and training is that repetition is the mother of skill. When you keep doing repetition, then your body has to respond, because that's your physiology. It's either going to respond or you're going to overtrain it. So when this happened to me, I'd have my wife come in, because now I'm at home, and I'd have my wife, you know, she was obviously caretaker, she was very concerned about me. I dragged myself in, and I'd sit down on one of our tables there, and I said, just come over to my side, and I want to apply something here. So I would tell her, grab my arm, and just raise it for me, like a curl, like this, right? So she grabbed my arm, and all she did was do repetitions with me. I couldn't move it. And all I did was watch her do that. I thought, I'm going to connect the mind to the muscle, like this. I would do that every day. Now here's how your physiology works. It takes 21 days before your body adapts to a routine. Around 21 days. 21 to 30, 40 days, but around 21 days you're going to, from doing something every day, you should see a response from that. And I can't tell you, it was really close. It was 21 or 25 days. You know how like you know that you can do something? You just know in your mind and your gut. It's a weird feeling, but you know that. Around the 3-week mark, I came in and she sat down and I said, I can do this. And I did. I went to move. And up to this point, what I was feeling was I could almost feel like the brain was trying to connect to the muscle, but it just couldn't. There was like a delay there. It seemed like this energy was traveling down the side of my body, but I just couldn't get it to connect. And now one day, around 3 weeks, I did it, and it connected. When it connected, I knew from my training in the background was that now I had a fighting chance. The body just told me that. And what was even more amazing was that what I learned in that sport, in blind faith, actually happens. That's how powerful your mind is. But the thing is you have to be willing to do the work for that, the repetition. And it's hard to do that when you're impaired. Nothing that I did in my recovery was anywhere near. Bodybuilding was difficult. What I'm trying to say, come on in. Bodybuilding, the sport of bodybuilding was very difficult because it's not normal for your body to put muscle on. It does it out of self-defense. Hello. It does it out of self-defense. It doesn't do it because it wants to. So in that sport, you're always going against what your body's nature is, you know? But nothing in the sport that I did, no amount of training, no weight that I lifted was ever any harder than just trying to move my impaired body. Nothing was ever harder than that. It was amazing. You know, I trained I've been training since I was about 25 years old. I'm 62 here in 2 days, actually. And, nothing was ever harder than that training like this, you know? It was crazy. But once my body connected to that muscle, then I knew I had a fighting chance. So that's when I started doing rehab at my house and with my wife, and just slowly, just little baby steps I took to get, all of a sudden I started getting, better results. And then, the other thing I was fighting at that time too was, especially because of the sport that I was in, I was so embarrassed and humiliated that this happened to me that I didn't want to go out in public. I just, now I just really stayed in my house. And I stayed in the backyard. I was doing most of my rehabbing in my house or in the back because I just didn't want people to see me. I felt really self-conscious about that. But I also knew that if I didn't start doing the things that I did before all this happened, that would paralyze me more than the actual stroke did. Because it would keep me confined. It would make me withdraw. And I knew that was not going to be the best thing for me. So it was, again, just like in my sport that I was in, I had to go and do, we talked about in bodybuilding, it was like every day you walked into the gym was like walking in fire. Because you put your body through that kind of pain every day in order to get your body to respond. It's a crazy sport like that. And here I was again, because now it was different. Now I was having to get back out in public and do the things I did before, I've been speaking to people for a long time. I have a gym, a personal training studio, and I speak to people all the time. And I go out and I speak to people, because that's what I do. And all of a sudden now, not only can I not move my body like I used to, I knew that if I didn't get out there, what was I going to do? So, I came up with this idea, and it was called PIP, P-I-P, practice in public. That's what I did. I need to do stuff like that because I have to create sort of scenarios and sort of goals. So, I'm getting myself to a point where I'm thinking, okay, time to go walk on my street. And then that's when I learned another major thing about your body, how fantastic it is in your brain. When we're babies, our body is developing all these sensory skills, like adjusting to when the street's going like this. when there's a curve, your mind and your body automatically adjust to that. Well, I didn't realize until I started walking on my street how uneven the street was. You know, it looks flat. You know, but there's like little. Well, when you're impaired, when your gait's off, it doesn't take much, I'm sure you know. So I thought, well, how am I going to get over this? You know, this is crazy. I mean, walking on the street was like a job. You know, everything was a job. But here's, again, repetition being the mother of skill. I just started following my own principles that I learned. I just kept walking, you know? And all of a sudden I started noticing that my brain and my body started adjusting to that uneven street.
Did you fall down?
Oh, yes. Heavens, yes. You know, the only way you're going to succeed is failing. You have to be one, this is my own, you know, opinion, is to get out there and fail. And just keep failing until you succeed. And that's what's really hard to do for most people. You know, because what I couldn't understand was this. This was some telling things. Again, I'm practicing in public, and I'm starting to get myself back out there again. Was I 100%? No. I was far from it at that point. I'm like, at this point, I'm kind of moving through the cycle here. It's about 4 months, you know.
Were you using a cane when you were walking?
No.
You were not using
No.
a cane?
My mindset, and again, I'm not suggesting for people to do that, but my mindset was I have to get back to doing things like I did. If I fall, I fall. You know? I just didn't get out there and start walking. I would walk a little ways. It's kind of like I read in history one time, when the sailors were going out to see if the world was round or flat. One group would go out, and then they come back and say, yeah, it's, you know, they just keep going out and come back. I just get more information. I'll let you know if it's round or flat. So I just kept going out a little bit further each time, you know. Yeah, I mean, yeah, I fell. I fell off my bike. I crashed. It was insane, but I refused. As an athlete, I refused to let things beat me. Does that mean I didn't get beat or got beat? I got beat. But I didn't stay down, you know? But here's the thing that was really telling for me. So I got out, my wife, I remember the first time after my little walk around the neighborhood, I said, okay, it's time to go to the downtown. I'm gonna go do something downtown that I would normally do. I went to the bank. Man, it was frightening, scary, you know? In a lot of ways. Because I told my wife, go. I'll call you if I need you. I mean, it drove her nuts. I don't know how she's still with me, to be honest with you. She's a great caregiver, you know. But here's what was telling. So I go to my doctor, my cardiologist, and he looks at me and he says, 6 months. I think it's like 5 or 6 months. He goes, 6 months. You had 3 strokes in 3 weeks. You're paralyzed. And he's asking me, how did you do it? And I told him. And he still looked at me like I was speaking a different language. That was telling to me. Come on in. Good morning. That was telling to me. I'm thinking, why is he asking me these questions, and then not, even after I told him not really understanding what I was talking about. Okay, that led me on a fact-finding mission. Okay, now I had to find out what the heck was going on. Because after he told me that, he said, look, you know, so I go fact find. So here's what I find, which made me mad as hell. 10% of the people who have strokes, they can almost 100% recover. 10% of us. 40% of us that have them, I found this out from my doctor, appear to be healthy and work out. Okay, that actually helped me a little bit, because when I left the hospital, they had no idea. They just gave me a vague answer. Well, there's these risk factors and blah, blah, blah. They just kind of pushed. And again, I'm not downplaying. I'm just telling you what happened to me. 90% of us live with a lifelong impairment. And I didn't understand that. So, as a bodybuilder, we are very, when it comes to pushing your body to that extreme and forcing it to grow muscle. You have to go out and research and find out everything. So I had to do that. When I left that doctor that day, I had to do that. So I started fact finding. Okay? My first thing was, okay, how in the hell did I get here, being an athlete like this, to being impaired? Okay? That's when I did my little fact finding, and this is when I came up with those kind of sobering numbers, percentage-wise. You know? But the thing is I feel like you have to look at that and address that and deal with that part of it instead of going like that. Because sometimes we do that. So I did that. And then I realized that there are risk factors. Blood pressure being the number one reason. Diabetes, heart disease, smoking, age, gender. Those are all risk factors. Now some of those, so my thing was, okay, let's take those risk factors, and what is it that I can control of those risk factors? I can't really control aging, but I control the way that I can maybe help the way I age by the way I take care of myself. So what I did, at that point when this all happened to me, I was at like 250 pounds or something. When I used to compete, I used to get like 300 pounds off season. And then I'd get really ripped up at 250, but that's a lot of weight. And I came back at a later age and tried it again because I was just curious, always been curious if the body would respond, and it did. Muscle has memory, I learned about that too. So I just started controlling my risk factors as good as I could. I dropped at that point 50, 60 pounds, which is where I'm at now, okay? So I've controlled that. I never had high blood pressure. Not chronic. I had high blood pressure when I gained weight. I knew that. I knew that I was playing with a little fire. It's trade-offs, and we know that. But it wasn't chronic. But I knew that by dropping my weight like that, that would really go a long ways in getting my blood pressure down. Okay? So I could control that. Stress on the body. Now, when you have stress on the body, which is caused by a lot of things, diet, just having a lot of stress at work, for example, that'll do it. Worrying, there's different things that cause stress to your body. Aging causes stress to your body, but you can't, like I said, you can't really do a lot about that, except in one case, you can change the way you eat. Okay? Now, again, as a competitor, I always ate pretty clean and pretty good, but I really started paying attention to, I really got even a deeper understanding about how important it is to use your diet in a way that can benefit you. For example, I switched my diet more to what's called a paleo diet. They call it caveman. And people ask, well, what is it that you eat in a caveman diet? It's basically what you can pick, pull, or kill. It's meat, fruit, vegetables, basically, for the most part. So I changed my diet to that because diet can cause stress, especially when you're eating processed foods, grains. This gluten thing that's been really on the market or on the forefront is real, but that's usually when you're eating processed foods or grains or things like that causes inflammation to your body. We knew as a competitive athlete that you were only as good as your recovery. So we did everything. I mean, you could train as hard as you want, but if you couldn't recover from what you were doing, then your body was constantly under stress. And when your body was constantly under stress, you would start breaking down. Okay? That's your body just telling you, hey, see, your body has a fight or flight nervous system. That's part of what it does. It alerts you when things are going on. Unfortunately, sometimes we don't pay attention to that. I know as an athlete, sometimes I overrode some of those alerts when I got, because I got those alerts before I had my strokes. I just didn't pay attention to them. But so think of doing a paleo diet is a good way to put your body in a spot that it can recover. Take inflammation out of your body. Now your body can start healing. If you don't do that, your body's always under stress. You're not given a chance to heal. So that's what I did. I tell you what, the diet, that diet was so effective that again, going back to my training, you know, in the 25 years plus that I trained, I never had a hernia. I got a hernia from rehabbing my body. I strained so hard that I got a hernia. So, you know, I had to go get it fixed, and the doctor said, look, you know, when you've had a stroke like this, we're concerned about putting you under anesthesia. So he said, I want you to do a cardiac clearance test. And I thought, you know, this is a good chance for me to get a brand new sort of a measure on how healthy I really was. So I did the whole thing. Angio, you name it, nuclear, whatever they had to test, I took it. And so that first test came back, and the doctor said, his words, for a man your age, at that time when I took that, I was like, I think it was 50, I don't know, 59 or something like that, 58. And he said, you're not going to die from heart disease. That's what he told me. Because I've always trained. I never stopped training, mind you. I went back to my training and I got back into it again, but I took my time. That was the difference this time. And when I did that test, he goes, you're not going to die from heart disease. But he said, you're 35%, overall, you're 35% blocked. Your arteries are blocked. And he says, but that's good. And I thought that was bad. You know? I guess it's all relative, right? And he said, no, we don't start addressing stenting and medication and that kind of thing until you're about 70% blocked. I was shocked, to tell you the truth. It amazed me. But that wasn't good enough for me. See, the athlete in me came out. He told me 35% blocked. I thought, I'm going to see if I can better that. I went back. This is when I changed over to that paleo diet. Okay, for the whole year, I ate that way. I modified it on the weekends, but for the most part, it was paleo, Monday through Friday. I went back, and I did my same testing, and the doctor said, I said, well, how'd it go this time? He said, amazingly, you've reversed your heart disease. Naturally, just using food. That was telling for me. You know, again, you don't really know those kinds of things until it hits you right in, you know. But look how much time I put into that to find out. You know, you got to be willing to do the work, I guess is my point. You know? So, diet, the reason why I'm talking to you about diet, that's one of the things that you can control right now. And it does make a difference. And you don't have to be on a real strict paleo. I mean, Monday through Friday is when I did my paleo, then on the weekends, I played. I ate what I want. Because I have to do that in order to make it worth it for me. That's just my mindset. You know, if it's too strict, I know that I won't do it. The only diet that's a good diet is the one you stay on forever. You know? So, again, diet, very important risk factor. Taking weight off, obviously, is going to help that. And of course, we know smoking and all the other things, okay? So, I guess the point that I'm making was that because in the back of my mind, I thought, okay, this happened to me, and I know that we've all thought about this. Is it ever going to happen to me again? That's a hard one, you know? I can go get tested and do all that, but it's still, that's lurking in your mind. Always. It doesn't, it's not on the forefront of my mind, but, you know, it's there. It's never going to go away. So how do I deal with that? For me, it's taking those risk factors and controlling what I can control. Because if you think about that, logically, what else can I do? If I'm doing my homework, I've done it, keep my weight down, know your numbers. Know your numbers. 120 over 80. Okay? I know my number, and I hold myself accountable to that number. Body weight, listen, you have to be at a body weight that doesn't expose you to the risk factors. I mean, look, you can have blood pressure that's too low or too high, chronically. You know, as long as your body weight's at a place where it doesn't expose you, I mean, there's not, and this is, you know, I can't tell you like a certain weight that you should be, but the point is, you got to live by your numbers, okay? And when you do that, what else can you do? You got to go out and live your life and get back to doing the things that you once did, you know? So so when I started going out and finding these numbers, then I looked at stroke. I looked it right in the face. I'm using maybe being metaphorical here, but stroke to me became my enemy. I was mad about this. I was mad that my body betrayed me. And now I had something to do with that. Okay, but I was still mad. But I had to take and I had to say, okay, I have to understand what I'm dealing with, what I'm up against, and I have to know my stroke intimately. This is the reason why I went out and found out about it, about the risk factors and all that kind of stuff. Because that gave me a chance now to develop a strategy to overcome this and to continue to overcome that. That gave me a chance to go out here and start talking to stroke support groups all over the country, because I wanted to find out why is it that the recovery rate is so bad. I'm a very skeptical kind of a guy about that. It doesn't make sense to me. $34 billion a year is being spent on that. And as far as motor skills are concerned, I am fully recovered now. There's still some things that on my fine motor skills that I'm still developing, but it's just a matter of time. So I've recovered. Now it's just a matter of time to get it all, what I call game speed, where I can punch as fast on one side as I can the other. You know, there's some things I still can't do 100%, but motor skill wise, I'm fully recovered. But that's not the case. So when I went up there and started talking to people, I started coming up with some common reasons why people weren't recovering. I'm just going to call it like I saw it. When people were telling me, well, my insurance company's cut me off a little bit too soon because we have what's called standard level of care in our country. Well, if you fall into that standard level of care and you're not 100% recovery, here's what I heard. Well, you go to your doctor and you get him to write you a prescription, and then you go to the gym and train yourself. How the hell is that going to happen? How's that going to happen? I mean, that's a totally uneven playing field. It's not going to happen. I know that because I own a studio that's is supervised training. People come to me because they're able, fully able, and they can't do it. You know, so to do that to a stroke survivor, man, that's brutal as far as I'm concerned. But this is what we heard. I also heard that in 8 to 12 months, your results are going to stop. That's a lie. Not true. But here's the thing that you have to do is you have to start your rehab early, because what that does is opens up that window. My window is I'm still recovering. This is 5 years later, and I still have breakthroughs. That is so awesome. See, until 1960, the industry didn't really know how pliable your brain was. They thought it was that, after 8 or 10 months, but here's what your brain can do. Mine happened here. And even though there's some actually some research that proves that the dead part can regenerate itself, but it doesn't matter if it can't, because your body it compartmentalizes. It starts building new avenues. So it can actually build new little roads beside the part that's damaged. They didn't know that can happen until 1960. So you combine that with starting your rehab early, and then be willing to do the work. This is not easy, by no means. It's all baby steps. And then you have breakthroughs. So you got to be willing to do that work. So I started finding out, okay, so the insurance companies are kind of the problem a little bit. Some of the doctors are from what I gathered, they either didn't know about one of the areas I need to talk to you, and I'll wrap it up. I know it's 30 minutes. One of the things that I did in my quest, I found non-traditional therapies that weren't being used in mainstream medicine. So here's what I did. Twice a week, IV therapy. I was going to a doctor I found, and all that in the IV was amino acids. There was no drugs, amino acids. Alpha-lipoic acid, glutathione. These are all antioxidants. They put it into a concoction, put it in the vein, 100% absorption. Unlike supplements, if you take a supplement, it gets broken down in the gut, you get maybe 30 to 50% actually gets to the cell. IV therapy, 100% absorbed. That was one thing I did. Took out inflammation. I like therapy. I found a place, you can look on Google, iLights. and it's like a colored sunglass. And because mine happened on the left side, it has like a cadence, a light that's a cadence in your eye right here. That cadence affects the side that is impaired, and again, takes inflammation out. Everything I'm telling you about takes inflammation out of your body. Oxygen therapy. The hyperbaric chamber is the best thing you can do, but I couldn't do that. So I did concentrated oxygen. The cannula, and I pumped oxygen into my body for 30 minutes. I did this on like once or twice a week. So oxygen, IV, iLife, music therapy. You do listen to certain types of music, lowers the inflammation in your brain. Those are the kinds of things, in addition to the work that I was doing, those are the kinds of things that got me back. And unfortunately, those are the kinds of things that aren't really well understood, I believe, or they're discounted, one or the other. But those are, so anyway, I could keep talking about this stuff, and I know we have to wrap this up, some questions, but I've kind of given you sort of my story and the things that I did in order to get myself back. And I have to tell you something. One of my philosophies that still remains is, and I tell people, look, you don't have to go to a gym necessarily to get better, okay? Because rehab is everywhere. And I looked at rehab everywhere. When I go and take the cap off my toothpaste, it took me 2 years to do this, to eat. I bundled my hand in the fork, and all I did every single day was this until I could actually do that. It took me 2 years. You see how long it takes to get this back? It's a hell of a lot of work. You know, it's very tiny steps, but those breakthroughs are awesome. They make me cry. And I still cry to this day. I love it. I used to think that crying was weak. No. My crying equals now there's a breakthrough that's around the corner. You know? So that gives you kind of an insight, a little bit, I hope, as to the things I did. And I have to tell you, I'm just, you know, it's to the point now where what we've done, my cause now is to go out here and we have the Stroke Warrior Foundation. I got a book deal out of this, believe it or not. I did, when all this happened to me, I just did, like I did with my training, I wrote everything down that I was going through. And I turned it in to a publishing company in New York, just for the heck of it. And they came back and they said, we love it. We want to give you a deal. It's called 3 Strokes in 3 Weeks, Saving My Life. So I got a book deal out of this thing. And my whole cause now is to go out and, you know, we've developed this Stroke Warrior Foundation. We have a big fundraising event that's being put on this coming Saturday. The whole point of that foundation is to raise money for stroke survivors. For those that are getting cut off too soon, or for those, for whatever reason. It'll be like on a scholarship type basis. You'll apply for it. I want to make sure that whoever gets this is going to a spot where they get the proper training. So we're going to, you know, make sure they're certified in our way. But that's all we do now. So we're having this fundraising event, and my whole calling now is to go up and down. Whoever will listen to me, I'll go speak to them. I don't care who it is. And to get information out, because the only way that we can all get better is if we all get on the same page. And one of the things that we learned in training, so much of this correlates with my training, because way back when I first started training, the information was fractured. You know, you go to one guy, he tells you this. You go to another, you go to 10 different people, you could get 10 different answers. So what does that do? It confuses you even more. You know, and then we figure that out. So my whole thing is to, let's get us all on the same page and share information, because when we do that, then we can really get better faster, right?
Right.
That's my story, and I'm sticking with it.